Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to Finish Big. I'm Mark.
And I'm Joe.
And this is a Big Finish, what is it? Discussion? Podcast / video?
Critique,
Review?
smart, charisma, intelligence.
Yes.
All of the above.
Well, we are working our way through every Big Finish release in order.
We are. And it's a very special episode this week.
Oh, very exciting.
Well, this was probably the biggest coup for Big Finish. No, this was probably the biggest coup? The biggest coup for Big Finish at all until Tom Baker came along.
Absolutely, yeah. We are looking at the Paul McGann releases, the first four that made up a new season at the time.
A 4-part season. Hang on, that's not the norm though, is it? Then it goes on to 6 episodes in series 2.
Yes, yeah, they expand it a bit once he gets going. But these initial 4, very exciting.
Well, it's very exciting. And I've got a feeling that Paul McGann is your favourite Big Finish Doctor.
Yeah, favourite Big Finish Doctor, favourite Doctor.
Your favourite Doctor?
Yeah.
He's in one story.
I know, but I have this thing where your favourite Doctor is either the first Doctor that you saw, or it's the first sort of new Doctor that came into being when you were a fan.
So
either, I don't know, I think it works with... I think it's quite unusual if you have a favourite Doctor that's not one of those things. So, obviously, I'm a 90s Wilderness fan, so... There were, for a very long time, there were only 7 Doctors.
Is that the official term?
Yes.
A 90s Wilderness fan.
Yeah. When did the Wilderness thing come around? Why do we call it Wilderness?
Well, because there was nothing going on in that time.
Yeah.
But on the TV...
there was a lot going on, actually.
Well, I think there was more going on in that time. There was more Doctor Who output coming out of the time when it wasn't on the TV than at any other time, I think. You have comics, you have the novels...
New Adventures.
The audios...
All these other spin-off things.
There's audio-visual stuff as well that came out.
Sophie Aldred was doing all of her spin-off stuff that you love.
Sophie Aldred was doing for threepence and tenpence. She was making Shakedown Return of the Sontarans.
Anyway.
Sorry.
What were we saying? Wilderness Years,
yeah.
So there was only ever 7 Doctors, and that was the end. The show had a complete... it finished in 1989. There was nothing else in terms of TV output. And then the TV movie came along. There was a new Doctor, Paul McGann. It was so exciting at the time. I was that perfect age. I was like 10 when it came out. So it was so exciting, and he was the Doctor. And it was so disappointing that there wasn't a series to follow up. But that TV movie is still one of my favourites, and Paul McGann is the Doctor.
Do you know, I know someone else who thinks it's very sad that it never went to series.
Daphne Ashbrook.
Which she said in a cameo to you once. Anyway, but there was this sudden creative resurgence, wasn't it? When the TV movie came out, and then the books went to 8th Doctor books, the comic strips went to 8th Doctor comic strips, you had all the Izzy stories, the Sam Jones stories, and then eventually, Big Finish was already going, wasn't it?
Big Finish, so we're 2001 with these Paul McGann stories, so Big Finish was 1999, with the Wonderful Science of Time that we talked about. So it was a good couple of years going. And actually, before we get any further, shall I do the usual and just say what stories we are talking about today?
Yes, please.
Storm Warning.
And what do I see below my feet when I come along? Half a ton of Axminster carpet, sir. Half a ton.
Sword of Orion.
Okay, yeah.
The Stones of Venice.
Oh. Where is Estella, my darling? How can I ever lose you?
And Minuet in Hell.
You pretty little Saturn bottoms.
Yeah, a very mixed bunch of stories to give this Doctor. But
hang on. You say me. I think 2 of these stories are excellent.
Okay. Yeah, no, they are great. They are very mixed. It's a very varied mini season. And this, at the time was super exciting. I mean, I think nowadays, because we've got obviously the new series and the vast amount of Big Finish output, we were still having 1 CD a month at this time. We had we had Bernice going as well still, but there still wasn't
Those
tons
were
of
the
stuff
days when we had one CD a month rather than 15 box sets every month.
So this was so exciting to have Paul McGann, and this was, essentially season 27 in a way for some people. This was a continuation. We weren't telling these stories that had to fit in between TV stories.
No, it was
brand
new. That's what was exciting about it, because you had companions coming in, Charlie Carith and all of that, and you didn't know their endpoint. So anything could happen to them. You didn't know how we didn't know how Paul McGann left the series.
Left. No.
Yeah. So that could happen.
We weren't even thinking about that.
And they really play on that as well, because it's they introduce a few elements in this first series with Charlie. I know we're going to go into all this. Charlie dying, stroke, not dying. But then in the second series, it goes very arc-based, doesn't it? There's a lot, kind of a very dense narrative taking place throughout the entire season. It feels like a series of Buffy, where it leads up to the Neverland and this big climax at the end that pulls all the threads together. Doctor Who basically taking on what TV was doing at the time. So it really did feel like fresh, original Doctor Who output.
Okay, now we've wet everyone's whatever about this. I forgot to do, before we go into the stories individually.
Oh, I love this.
I haven't done for a couple of episodes my actor watch list of how many appearances Big Finish actors have made so far.
Before we start, I must just say, Mark has literally written out every fucking actor that has appeared in Big Finish.
We're keeping a record,
today.
aren't we? We're keeping a record.
No, we aren't.
All right, then I am.
Thank you.
I am keeping a record. So, I can't remember who was on top first. Was it Nicholas Briggs? Possibly?
No, it was Mark Gatiss last time.
Gatiss, yes.
With, I think it was 4 or 5 appearances.
Okay, so the leader table at the moment is, and this is including these 4 Paul McGann releases.
Okay.
Up to this point that we've talked about. So, in at number 3...
Mark Gatiss.
With 6 appearances.
6? Fuck me.
There's a joint. It's Mark Gatiss.
Of course.
And Nicholas Pegg.
Nicholas Pegg did 6?
So far.
Wow.
So far.
Okay.
And
number 2?
At number 2 with 8 appearances. And also, just to bear in mind, the rules are if it's just different characters or different voices. So if it's the same character again and again, it doesn't count.
Can I ask you something, though, before you do number 2?
Yeah.
Do you think this is just somebody who is supremely talented and thus, they're like, we'll keep using this person because they're really talented, or they're just really cheap and part of the production team and they go, right, throw them in again, they'll do it for a £5.
Yeah, a lot of these are just sort of one-off voices, but they have to be in the credits as that voice.
Well, who's number 2 then?
Number 2 is Nicholas Briggs with
God.
8.
By the time we get to the end of this, it'll be number 1 with 5 million appearances.
I know, but I know he does the Daleks, but the Daleks only count as 1. So, and at number 1 with 9 appearances each,
wow,
we have 2. We have Barnaby Edwards, and Alistair Locke.
Oh, Alistair Locke. Okay, but these are all part of the production team. Barnaby Edwards directs, Nicholas Pegg writes, Alistair Locke does the sound design. So these are all people that, that are just around.
Yes, and some of them feature in this season that we're talking about as well as the odd bit character.
Oh, how exciting. I'll be really excited when you start mentioning people that aren't in the production team,
Yeah,
like
I know.
Sophie Aldred and things like that,
She has been. She was number 3 last time, wasn't she? She had a few, she had like 2 appearances.
She's done a lot.
Right, okay, well, let's get into these stories.
Let's go.
Okay, so first up, we have Storm Warning.
Oh, I see. Here comes Yappy, the little dog. He's going in the airship R101. Woof, woof, woof.
So this was released in January 2001, starring Paul McGann as the Doctor and India Fisher as Charlie Pollard.
Oh, we've got to talk about India Fisher.
Yep. So also starring Gareth Thomas, Nicholas Pegg, Barnaby Edwards and Helen Goldwyn. Written by Alan Barnes, directed by Gary Russell, with music by your fave, Alistair Locke.
No, the music is fantastic in this.
It is brilliant. And this is a really good one. This is a great one to start off. Did you hear this as it came out when it was released straight away?
I was getting them every single month.
Because this wasn't the first Paul McGann one I heard.
What?
I think actually Doctor Who magazine gave away episode 1 free. on CD. So I think I heard
Yes,
that.
I remember. With Last of the Titans, I believe.
Yeah, a Seventh Doctor one-off story. So I think everybody heard Storm Warning Part 1, but I didn't hear the rest of the story until a bit later on. I didn't actually buy this until later on. I think it's a really great story. It sets up, as you say, this story arc. It introduces a new companion, brand new audio companion. And we've had success for that before with Evelyn.
Yeah. Well, do you know what, right? They do something that's levelled at Rusty Davies quite a lot in the new series. It's like, why the hell didn't they do that before? You know, like when he did Rose Tyler going home and she's been missing for a year and everyone's going, and the sort of focusing on the companions' families and all this, and people are going, the show's been going for 26 seasons. Why haven't they done this before? Well, the idea of the companion that should have died, or the arc based around whether the companion should have, that's such a great dramatic idea. Why the hell didn't they do that before?
I know, yeah. It seems obvious now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or to have an actual, a story arc. That's what we can do with this season. Have a story arc going right through, which you can't do with those classic Doctors necessarily, unless it's sort of
as an idea. It doesn't cost any money, so you just need to have sort of the creative cojones to do it.
And with India Fisher as Charlie, I mean, we've had India Fisher already in The Wonderful Winter for the Adept, and she sounds pretty similar here as Charlie, but Charlie Pollard as well, at the time, was the current companion, was the new companion. And I remember thinking that, and I think she was considered in fandom as well, like the current...
Sure. She was the Rose Tyler of Big Finish. She was going to conventions.
Yeah, she was
like
the
TV companions go to conventions. Like she was getting that sort of reception.
Yes.
Of like, you're the in thing, you know?
And I think maybe she's not as remembered nowadays because, again, we've had so much output from Big Finish.
Yeah.
I think, and obviously she hasn't done as...
Well, the TV series
been around in the TV series, but pre-TV series, she was India Fisher was the Billie Piper, definitely.
That just leads me to ask you one question then.
Yeah.
And you know this was coming.
Yeah.
So why is India Fisher as Charlie Pollard the first lady of Big Finish? I think there have been a lot of female companions since Charlie. I don't think Evelyn aside. Sorry, I have someone at work called Evelyn. Evelyn aside, there's been as successful a female companion. So what went so right with Charlie?
Was it because she was just the first time that you'd done this, the first time that a companion had been focused? What are you looking at? Are you joking?
No, I don't.
Hold on a
sec. No, I don't think the reason is because
this
wasn't done again. I think it's because she is
brilliant,
so well written and so well acted,
and she has this story arc as well. She's given as much focus as the Doctor.
Yes.
And I don't think we've had that before. Until Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper, they are equal, and we join. It's Memoirs of an Edwardian Adventuress. It's not
by Charlotte E. Pollard.
It's not I'm the Doctor and these are my adventures. Yeah. We're following Charlie, and she's great. I mean, it is very similar to that character in Winter for the Adept. I think she's brilliant. I mean, I think maybe fans nowadays might remember Lucy Miller, Sheridan Smith.
Lucy Miller is
but
she's very different.
Everyone likes her. I'm a Charlie Pollard
fantastic.
fan. I think Lucy Miller, is just a cookie cut out of Rose Tyler with a bit more gob.
We'll get there.
Whereas Charlie Pollard, India Fisher, I don't know, and she sort of has elements of a classic companion, but with those sort of elements of a new Who companion as well. She's a very good bridging the gap, a bit better, I think, than for that time than maybe.
Well, I've got a quote here from Alan Barnes.
Oh yeah,
in my fabulous Big Finish Inside Story by Simon Gurrier, endorsed by Gary Russell on my own podcast, Handsome with a Blunt Penknife, full of gossip and juicy facts, where he says that he deliberately wanted to write a companion that wanted to be there. He basically wanted to push against that 80s, that sort of mid-80s Perry Tegan whiny companion that just hated travelling and, you can have my room for all our care and, oh my God, can we go back to the TARDIS, Doctor? Yeah, all that bollocks. He wanted someone full of enthusiasm and who was sort of infectious to be around. And do you know what? The two of them together, this breathlessly romantic Doctor and this sort of gumption Edwardian adventurer. I mean, it's just delightful.
It's perfect.
It is delightful.
It's perfect because Paul McGann as the Eighth Doctor has all of those brilliant qualities we saw in the TV movie, that childlike, these are the shoes, all that kind of stuff.
They push away from that later, don't they? Make him a bit darker.
I think Paul McGann wanted to explore that a bit more, but we start off with a very much a recognisable Eighth Doctor here. Okay, the beginning of Storm Warning, it's a little bit of shaky ground because it's the Doctor talking to himself for like the first 5 minutes.
They finish doing this a lot, having characters talking to themselves.
I know. And I was like, when I first heard it, it's great to hear those TARDIS sounds of that wonderful design of the soundscape of that. But just those first 5 minutes before we really get into the adventure and meet Charlie, it's just Paul McGann talking to himself a bit like a time ship crashing and again and again and all that kind of stuff. And he's very much descriptive. And I was like,
recently listened to 8th of March, The Big Blue Book, or whatever it's called, The Blue Book. What was it called?
8th of March, The Big Blue Book, I think.
Okay. And that features Sophie Aldred talking to herself for 10 minutes. Wait. For 10 minutes, and it was agonising.
Paul McGann gets away with it, yeah.
He's a better actor, and I
don't mind it. I just
can do it.
I just think, okay, to begin with. But then once we get into this, it's absolutely brilliant. And the R101 is a great concept to fit a story round.
So come on, then. What's this great secret you really shouldn't be telling me?
You're not supposed to be here, are you, Charlie?
Doctor, you know that already.
No, I mean, you are really not supposed to be here, are you?
No, I'm not. Oh, come on, Doctor, what's the matter?
It's just like I say, if I remember my Earth history correctly, the R101 airship took to the skies for her maiden voyage to India early in October 1930.
Yes, and?
And crashed in flames in France during a storm in the early hours of the next morning, killing everyone aboard.
And you're saying that's what's going to happen to us?
Yes, Charlie, I'm very much afraid I am.
There's a countdown, isn't there? Because we know the ship's going to crash.
And you know what's going to happen. It's very interesting to do something like the R101, whereas you could have gone for the obvious, like Titanic or something like that. But I love how...
that as well, though.
But I like how it's still this historical event, and actually...
Which did happen.
Which I didn't know much about. I feel like I'm an expert in the R101 now, because I've listened to...
I think there are photographs, you know.
There are, crashing and stuff. Yeah, it's a real...
It's a bit macabre having a look at pictures of the crashed ship. Yeah, a lot of people died, you know.
Yeah, I know. Well, so did they on the Titanic as well.
Well, Charlie didn't die there.
Yeah. Well, no. She's not real.
What? But you're right. And do you know what? I think what really helps in episode 1 is, the direction of this is really strong. And the sound design is really strong. And there's a really clever transition where they go from this, it's like a radio announcer saying, you know, and off we go on a jolly adventure with the R101. And then it seamlessly segues into the ship soaring through the clouds. And you can actually hear the engine and the clouds. And it just sets the scene. But some of these Big Finish stories, the sound design is so strong. You can picture it in your mind. You shut your eyes, you're absolutely there. He's in the sort of the engine room of it, which is all
that's
echoey,
where the TARDIS
isn't it?
lands,
He's
isn't it? Yeah.
It's like being Jonah in the belly of the whale, he says. Oh, it's so good.
It is amazing. And actually, just to say about the cover designs for these as well, they went for this sort of copper logo to begin with to sort of distinguish it a bit. I think they changed it a bit in the end afterwards, but they were really trying to make it
they did a different colour, didn't they? They did brown for Storm Warning, they did blue for Sword of Orion.
No, they were all brown to begin with, and then the later reprints went blue.
Oh, okay. So Stones of Venice was brown, and then Minuet in Hell was orange?
They're all browny orange. They're all the same. I've literally I've just told you like twice. They were all the same.
Yeah, but the ones you've got there,
these are all the originals.
Different colours.
They're not. They're exactly the same colour. Anyway. Well, and it's a pseudo. I was going to say pseudo historical. Well, it is, isn't it?
It's the right word. Yes.
Because we've got this alien threat now. Part 1, part 2, you're getting into it. You're following Charlie. You're following the Doctor. Yeah. It does. Slightly, when the aliens actually turn up,
we dovetail into a Star Trek episode.
We go off on a little bit.
We are the Triskelions.
And it's inventive as Helen Goldwyn doing her best alien.
Is it Helen Goldwyn?
I think so, yes.
She should stick to directing, I swear. Honestly, go listen to Time in Office. For her. She's a good director.
And how do you... I always imagine, I don't know why, because they're not described as this, but I always imagine them as... There is an alien in the 8th Doctor Radio Times comic strips which are purple horses with yellow spots.
No.
But I don't know why. But in my mind, that's what I think they look like. But they don't.
Do you know who I imagine they look like? Did you ever watch that episode of The Simpsons? And it had Mulder and Scully in it. Investigator. And then Mr. Burns comes out of the woods looking like a ghost with massive eyes going, hello.
They are a bit like... Yeah,
I think the Triskeli look a bit like Mr. Burns in that episode.
That's how the voice sort of... But what do you think in terms of the story? Does the plot sort of...
It just stops.
It does,
whilst
doesn't it?
we get introduced to all the different casts. I am the scientist Triskeli. I am the warrior Triskeli. And then the warrior Triskeli kills the scientist Triskeli. But the idea isn't it, is that... What's Gareth Thomas's character's name?
Lord Tamworth.
Lord Tamworth, he is taking up the R101, and you think it's just, this fantastic voyage and the show of strength and all of this. Actually, they're there to make contact with an alien race. And I think that to bring back weapons, is it? Or to actually bring back representatives of the alien race. Anyway, and I do like all of that. But part 3, yeah. Oh, do you know what? Can I tell you a really great quote about Gareth Thomas?
Yeah.
Alan Barnes goes, he was so excited that when they cast Gareth Thomas, he said, because he'd get royalties for the Doctor Who fans and the Blake 7 fans.
Well, he is obviously known as Blake from Blake 7.
He is terrific in this.
He's put these great
He's got that Jago and Lightfoot style sort of over-the-top plummy performance.
He's great as this. I mean, when he does Blake 7 for Big Finish, I'm sorry, but he's beyond all recognition, unfortunately.
Mark, you've got to stop going on about people getting old.
I know, right. I'm sorry. He's in terms of the...
We're not getting younger ourselves.
Well, like Deborah Watling does not sound at all like anything. I know she doesn't. I know it's years later, but she just does not.
It was found in a Mormon church.
Yeah, but he does not sound... He's the Deborah Watling of the Blake 7 cast, I feel, in a way. And he just doesn't sound like it. I'm sorry. But of course he doesn't, because it's years and years later. But he's perfect for this role. It's great to have him in a different...
There is
role.
one performance in this that's very odd.
Which one?
You want some more of the needles? I'll give you some more of the needle. I believe that might be Barnaby Edwards or Nicholas Beds.
It is what Rathbone is Barnaby Edwards.
Doing a very strange
Do your
French
Nicholas
accent.
Pegg one. Do your Colonel Frayling about the carpet.
Eh? Half a ton of Axminster carpet, sir. Half a ton.
Oh, it's perfect. It's brilliant. But yeah, but it doesn't really matter to me too much that the plot sort of stops and everything, because you're just enjoying listening to Paul McGann and India Fisher
having
a great time.
And instantly their rapport, the two characters, it's like they were made for each other. It's two jigsaw pieces coming together.
But and this wasn't the first one they recorded together. They did this third in production.
They did Stones of Venice first,
I think they did, yeah.
That's even better than this as well.
But it's a great start. And we haven't mentioned as well the theme music.
Like David Arnold.
Remix
James
especially.
Bond. Is it James Bond?
I wasn't a fan of it when I first heard it.
No, I don't like it now.
It had this weird, I was like, is this being played is it the right speed? Has something happened to the recording? It takes you a bit of time to get used to it.
It's one of the more dreary examples of the Doctor Who theme.
It doesn't sort of ignite excitement.
And honestly, I would say the Doctor Who theme tune is something you can't really get wrong. But there's David Arnold there proving us wrong.
I think they slightly...
That weird? That's sort of prelude music before, and then it goes into like a pre-credit sequence.
Yeah, that bit with
Paul McGann. And then you get the music.
It's that...
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't do it.
Can you just cut it in right now? There we go.
And then it goes in. But I love it. Pre-titles. It's always great gets you excited for a new season of Doctor Who. And
do they keep doing that going ahead? I don't think they do.
Not really. No, I think just for this first one. I think.
Oh, okay. Do you know? I did feel it roused in episode 4 though, because obviously that's the crash of the R101.
Yeah, we know that's coming.
It's doing that sort of Mythmakers Gunfighters thing of having a lot of fun for 3 episodes, and then it's a tragedy at the end. Although it is strange, okay, because everybody crashes and burns and dies, and then you've got Charlie and the Doctor going on Ramsay the Vortisaur going, whee, off we go. I'm like, tonally, this is a bit odd, And what is that dinosaur all about?
What, Ramsay?
Ramsay the Vortisaur.
Well, I mean, he's around, isn't he? He's a bit of a part of the arc of this season. I wouldn't
say there's an arc around Vortisaur.
Well, no,
because
but he's
in 2 stories, and then they just go, right, throw him back in the vortex.
I know, he could have been he could have been the new K9.
He doesn't talk though, does he?
No, yeah, but they could fly in and out of him. Not in and out of him, on and top of him.
Well,
at the beginning and the end of each story.
You know what it is Alan Barnes is probably best known before this, because this was his first audio, for writing the comic strips. He did an awful lot of comic strips, And I think... I think he should stick to comic strips. But I think he writes with strong images. The R101 crashing, the dinosaur flying out of, through the clouds. And if you listen to his stories, he's not always the best on plot and character and all of this stuff, but he's very good on imagery. And something just all coheres here. I think there's a lot of excitement in him getting to write this first Paul McGann one. But I do think there's some nicely crafted dialogue in this as well. There's some really strong characters in this. And yeah, I just think overall it is a fun, energetic, a decent listen.
Yeah, they're all very distinct characters.
Yeah.
You get them straight away.
That's not the same in the second story, is it?
Well, I was about to say, in complete contrast to the next one coming up.
Let's just see if I've got any more fascinating facts.
I'd love a fact, please.
Okay, well, here I go. So, this was written in 3 weeks. And apparently Alan Barnes picked up the phone to Gary Russell and said, I am writing this one. So there was no negotiation. If he was going to be involved, he was going to write.
But hang on, he hadn't written anything before.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that fabulously bitchy meeting that they had right at the beginning, where Stephen Moffat stormed out? Because
we shall all never forget that.
Well, I was the fly on the wall. Remember, stirring it all up. I think you said. No, but Stephen Moffat stormed out because he said, "I'm only going to be involved if there's 8th Doctor audios." Well, I bet you regretted that little moment of that little flight of fancy now.
But you say Alan Barnes hasn't written anything before.
Not for the audios.
Well, that's a bit of a risk to give him this one, then, isn't it? If he's not written audio before.
I think they kind of.
But he's known as a writer. I mean, he hasn't written any books or anything. He was, as you say.
The weird thing about, let's take a brief Alan Barnes detour here. The weird thing about Alan Barnes is initially his was a name everyone got very excited about. When he took on the main range, which was around the trilogies, and then he kind of stuck with it for about 150 releases, his name became this byword for like everything that's gone stale and wrong with the main range.
When you say Alan Barnes to me, 2 things come to my mind. One, he invented Charlie Pollard and did this, and that's great, and he was overseeing that arc. 2, he worked for Doctor Who magazine.
Are you not going to talk about that time when he got up in a dress?
Yes, that's all I
knew you were going to say that.
Every time I just see that photo shoot of him in that dress that he did for...
Did he have like a Dalek plunger in his hands?
Yeah,
and a red dress?
That is Alan Barnes to me.
Sorry, Alan, that is
the image. That's how he's remembered.
But and I still think even after he kind of went off the boil, and he did, because he was responsible for the main range for a long, long time. And what? There are a finite number of ideas that you can have.
He's only script editing. He's not coming up with the ideas.
No, but he started writing scripts like Daleks Among Us and things like that, like an American Werewolf in London or whatever it was called. Really dreadful stories, but he was still capable of knocking it out of the park. He did some of the ones he did later on. Death in Blackpool, I love. White Ghosts. I'd say he is a variable. He's like the Chris Carter of the Big Finish. You know who Chris Carter is?
X-Files creator.
Yeah, you never quite know whether you're going to get an absolute stinker or something that's absolutely good. But during these early stages, this and Neverland and stories like that...
That's peak, isn't it?
It's his peak.
Peak AB, yeah.
Peak AB. Well, I think the conclusion we're kind of drawing here is Storm Warning is a really, really good start for the 8th Doctor range.
Okay, well, let's go into the next one then, shall we?
Okay.
Sword of Orion was released in February 2001. Again, starring New Dream Team, Paul McGann and India Fisher. Featuring Bruce Montague, Michelle Livingstone, Helen Goldwyn, Nicholas Briggs. This was written by Nicholas Briggs, directed by Nicholas Briggs, with music by Nicholas Briggs. And
starring Nicholas Briggs as the Cybermen.
Yes.
Talk about a fucking vanity project.
So, I mean, you couldn't get any different, really, on this one. I didn't listen to this one at the time. I got it much later on. It didn't really particularly interest me. I suppose the draw is...
What do you mean at the time? It didn't interest you this time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I suppose the draw is it's our new Doctor, current Doctor, coming up against the Cybermen. Oh, go on, you start, because I can't even talk about this.
Well, this was... So Sword of Orion was based on an audio-visuals audio. Could you please explain what audio-visuals are?
So audio-visuals were fan-made audio production sort of in the 1980s.
Why visuals? There are no visuals.
I think that's the sort of pun.
What, they're so audio that you get a visual.
So it was like Nicholas Briggs, Gary Russell, etc. Of that.
I think the only two you can think of.
I can't think of anyone else. I wasn't Bill
John
Baggs'
Haynes,
part, but Bill Baggs,
yeah,
all that lot.
It was BBV,
so they did it was
it?
just fans coming together making fan audios, which is a great idea, amazing. And I think, I don't know, you have all the facts of this.
Go on.
Was this script reused because they needed to get some scripts together ready for Paul McGann in a certain amount of time, or was this we've got this amazing script, we can adapt it, because it I think it went down well at the time as an audio-visual.
When this was an audio-visual story, originally Briggs had written a very cerebral story called The Ultimate Brain, right? But Bill Baggs wanted a straight-down-the-line action-adventure, so Briggs basically cherry-picked all of his favourite parts of Doctor Who, Earthshock and things like that, and the Cybermen, and sort of put it all together, going, oh, there you go, if you want traditional, you'll get traditional. Well, surprise, surprise, that turned out to be the most popular audio-visual. It went down a tree. And by the way, I did have a quick search today. It is currently on YouTube if you should want to listen to it. And it sounded pretty good, actually. It sounded better than Sword of Orion.
I think this is a definite flavour of Doctor Who. If you do like your traditional, if you're a fan in the 80s and you like it, like you say, your Earthshocks and things, it's not my particular favourite type of Doctor Who. And, the good thing about Doctor Who and all the big finishes and all the stories is each one is a different taste. I just don't really like... It's supposed to be this sort of hard sci-fi. Oh, we've been mining for years on this ship. And the sort of supposed banter between these crewmates.
Nick Briggs' banter is...
It's all of that. It's that. Maybe that's what
thing.
It's that kind of thing. But I love the Terry Nation-y type space adventure. I like, but this doesn't have that personality or that quirkiness or that.
No, wait. But the Terry Nation space adventure, that's more like sort of Dan Dare going off with a cliffhanger every week, moving off to a new location, blah blah blah.
This isn't though.
This is the Eric Saward space adventure.
That's it. That's what I'm not a fan of particularly.
Dull, one note, one dimensional characters.
That's the problem. And this was just not memorable for me. Paul McGann, India Fisher, great, and the character of Charlie Poller. It's a shame because it's such a strong start for Charlie.
They are
and
trying.
Then it just dips so much.
Where the Doctor and Charlie had great character moments in, I can't remember one character beat that either the Doctor or Charlie gets lost in this completely. In her second story.
Like you said, it goes back. It's a shame because you had Storm Morning where it's trying to go against those sort of 80s companion moments. And then we're just straight back to it might as well be an 80s companion, sidelined. And none of those characters, I can't really tell you much about those
all I can remember
characters.
Is Crash. You remember Crash? He goes, shut it, quite a lot.
No, they're all like that. And it's the dialogue is not interesting. And the setting is not interesting for me. I mean, actually, it starts off, that bit where at the market, with your favourite bit. What's the name of that market they're supposed to be?
The Garrison
system. The Garrison system. That's a nice idea.
And Charlie goes, oh, look at you with your lovely tentacles. And he goes,
there are a few little moments like that, but then it just doesn't get interesting. The Cybermen, this is a bit of a backdrop to what later becomes that Cyberman series.
Which you quite like, don't you?
And... yeah, I quite like that as its own thing, but as just this Doctor Who story, it doesn't. It just doesn't interest me. I'm afraid.
Because I feel like audios should be a celebration of language and ideas and narrative and things like this. Yeah, what they shouldn't be is soundtracks to missing Doctor Who stories. Yeah. And that's what this is. Yeah. It's basically Paul McGann and a bunch of extras walking around a load of dark tunnels in this spaceship with Cybermen going coming out the shadows.
Why has my revival been delayed? There was a systems failure caused by an external influence, leader. Then it must be corrected. What was the reason for the activation signal? A ship is drifting alongside. Its crew must be captured and cyber-converted. Continue the revival program. Yes, leader.
Now we're really in trouble. We've got to find the TARDIS.
TARDIS?
My ship. It should be safe to re-enter it by now.
Safe?
Come on.
Well, that's not enough plot to fill 25 minutes, let alone 2 hours or however long
and there's
this
this
is.
bit of they tried to drum up a bit of interest with this sort of duplicate who's
hang on, I like that
sleeper
though.
agent-y type thing, isn't there? In a
I
way?
think things actually pick up in part 4 when you learn that Diva, who is she's somebody on this ship. She's the female character.
Yeah.
They're so indistinctive. I'm just calling her the female character. Like, that's her one characteristic.
Well, it is, though, isn't it? It is.
She's like the medical officer or something like that. Anyway, it turns out, spoiler, everybody, that she is an Orion android, and what the androids are trying to do is to get the secret of cyber technology. You know how they cybertize human beings? And they want to be able to cybertize human beings in the Orion War and use them against the humans. And some of that is not massively interesting, but it's a bit more interesting than just wandering about the tunnels, you know.
Yeah, I think that interesting idea works in that spin-off series where you can explore, and it's a bit of a vast sort of more of a, rather than just being on this spaceship, because I suppose the idea is a bit like sort of, I don't know, an 80s Doctor or traditional Doctor Who, where they're sort of trapped, they're on the spaceship, they're trapped, and you've got these characters, but they, as we've said, they're just not interesting characters.
And may I say, if you have a headache, do not listen to this, because the relentless
the music, even the music isn't...
Oh, it's awful. And you know what, it's just that. What I just did there,
Yeah.
over and over again. It's like being assaulted by the Zarbi noises in the Web Planet for 2 hours. So, yeah, it's I tell you what, it's very insubstantial. Coming in the wake of a story with a very dramatic idea at its heart, and with some very sort of romantic dialogue and colourful characters, to tell something this sort of bare and functional, it's very strange. Now, there are two different types of Doctor Who story, and I do like the fact that Doctor Who is diverse like that, but I feel like you're going from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed. And it's a shame, because whenever I'm like, I'm going to do a Paul McGann marathon, Storm Warning, yeah, and then you're like, I've got to get through Sword of Orion before I carry on.
You got Stones of Venice.
And then there's Stones of Venice.
Do you know what? Do you want to hear a quote that I just think is hilarious, especially given the fact that Nick Briggs took over Paul McGann's range when it came to Dark Eyes, you know, at the end of Lucy Miller and To the Death. He's quoted here as saying, I had no burning ambition to work with Paul McGann. Or to write for Paul McGann.
You cannot utter those words. Who in their right mind would say that?
What? Not me.
That is terrible.
I'll do anything with Paul McGann,
exactly.
honestly. Right.
It's come from a script with, I don't know, the Nicholas Briggs Doctor, I suppose. So it's not written with Paul McGann in mind, not like Storm Warning.
Was Nicholas Briggs the Doctor in those audio visuals?
I think so. Well, for some of them, yeah.
Honestly, his vanity has no end.
So you could, there's not really much in here. You could just put any Doctor. It's a very generic Doctor in this as well. But Paul McGann is what brings the interest to it. He plays it as well as he can, as whatever he's given.
But over the years, now Paul McGann has had a number of stinkers, and unfortunately...
He rises above it.
No. Oh. But I think you can tell when he's bored with a script. I don't think he
I hope this wasn't the first one they recorded.
No, that was Stones of Venice. And I think he's really engaged with the Stones of Venice, because he's giving a very enthusiastic performance in that. Do you want to hear another quote from Nick Briggs?
Let's go, yeah.
I just love these Nick Briggs quotes. Well, because I've said to you before about how he comes at reviewers, doesn't he, when they don't like his work. So, he says, Dave Owen's critical review was very well argued, and he made valid points. Dave Owen was the reviewer from Doctor Who magazine. He goes, I just didn't agree with any of his points. Well, of course you didn't. He was slacking it off.
But this is Nick Briggs' type of Doctor Who. That's what he does.
He has rewritten...
That is his thing.
This, now he's kind of in a producer's role. He has now, unfortunately, the resources to rewrite this story again and again. We've heard this a million times, haven't we? We're in Dawn, Dalek Empire. I mean, he's done it a million times.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of that sort of type of sci-fi story. So,
do you know, is there a Nick Briggs scripted story that you really, really rate? I've got one. Mine's Creature of Beauty.
I was going to say Creatures of Beauty. That That's the only one that springs to mind right now.
Well, I also think Dalek Empire is very good for what it is.
Did you write Dark Eyes?
He did.
All of it?
The first one.
Yeah, okay, that one. Yeah.
What are you doing, the Doctor? Get back in your tardy box.
Anyway, shall we move on to the next one? Because I don't think we're going to get any more enthusiastic about Sword of Orion right now.
My suggestion is this. If you're going to listen to this first season of Paul McGann's, do the opposite of what you would do with the Starship movies. Listen to the odd ones and avoid the even ones. So listen to Storm Warning and Stones of Venice and avoid Sword of Orion and Minuet in Hell.
Well, let's see. Okay, so Stones of Venice.
Ah, yes.
Released in March 2001. Paul McGann, India Fisher. Guest starring Michael Sheard, Nick Scovell, Barnaby Edwards, Elaine Ives Cameron, and Mark Gatiss.
Is Elaine Ives Cameron Estella? You fool, Orsino. Oh, she's amazing.
This was written by Paul Mars, directed by Gary Russell, with music by Andy Hardwick.
I feel like I should go first on this one.
You love this one, don't you?
Because you're wrong about it. This is...
Hold on.
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, I'm going to say you're wrong. I feel like the opposite of you. Well, you think this is all right, don't you?
Yeah.
Whereas for me, personally, I think this is one of the best Big Finishes they ever did. In terms of atmosphere and setting, and I'll say it again, the celebration of language, I think Paul Mars, he's just excellent for audio. He's doing almost like the opposite of what everybody else is doing. He is just indulging in fantastic wordplay and characterization. And boy, oh boy, he is a talented man. So I've got a list of pluses for this one.
Okay, go
if
for
you
it.
will let me read them out. Okay. So I think this has an evocative and atmospheric setting. I think that you've got words and sounds, so the script and the production working in harmony. You've got the Doctor as an eccentric romantic hero. Charlie is full of spunk. Oh, wait. Spunk and enthusiasm. I put, what a pair. The dialogue is a joy to listen to, and that's in sharp contrast to sort of Orion. Michael Sheard chalks up another Doctor, and I think this is Paul McGann's best performance of the four.
Well, that's interesting, as it was recorded first, and this is the first one I actually bought. So I heard this as my first Paul McGann Big Finish.
Doctor? I was saying, Doctor, we've tried to help them and now they're shooting at us.
That's often the way.
Are you all right?
I was just thinking, how about a trip to Venice, Charlie?
What? Look, we're in imminent danger of being shot to smithereens and...
I just fancied it. It popped into my head for some reason.
Run, Doctor!
They're not exactly grateful for my help, are they?
I just said... Why do I bother? Are people ever?
Yes, sometimes.
Oh, good for you. Now how about getting us away from here before they tell us outright how pleased they were for freeing all their slaves and closing down their weaponry installations?
That's what I'm trying to do, Charlie. I'm attempting to save our necks, find the TARDIS, and plan our next trip all at the same time. I think I'm overextending myself.
I rather think you have.
He's just full of sunshine in this.
It was okay.
He's so
for
happy.
me.
He's so happy to be doing it.
It
you
is
can
great,
tell.
and I love the relationship there. I don't know. It's a very interesting story. There's a lot of dialogue, and it's very wordy.
It's an audio. It's a fucking audio.
I know. But again, not always to my taste in some ways.
What do you want to listen
It's a
to
little
then?
bit slow.
2 hours of sound
in
effects.
areas. It's a little bit slow in areas, but I love how it builds up in part one, part two. You've got, again, a bit like Storm Morning, the destruction of Venice is on its way. We know that there's that countdown happening.
I think I know why you don't like this so much.
Okay.
This is very Graham Williams.
Oh, maybe.
It's very Graham Williams. It's got some seriously melodramatic performances in it. Mark Gatiss's priest is, you will all be doomed.
Yeah, maybe
and
it is that.
Michael Sheard's doing his best sort of, oh, Estella, why did I ever betray you? Well, do you know me? I love all this high campery. And it is camp as Christmas. I mean, it's even got one cliffhanger, right? Where, what's the fella's name? Churchwell? Is he the one who protects all the art?
Yes.
And he goes, The amphibians, they're going to drag us down into the lagoon.
It's a brilliant idea. I do like it. It's not terrible for me. I like Charlie in this. I felt a little bit... I couldn't get when she sort of hypnotised and she sort of takes over as Strella, doesn't she? But they give her like a drink or something and she's hypnotised. I don't know. I didn't get... She's very falls into it very easily for me. That was where I started to...
I am here, my Duke.
It was a bit odd, wasn't it?
My love.
Is it obvious or not? Because one minute she's fine and she's talking to the gondolier and she's all, having a great time. And then next she drinks this thing and she's reenacting all this stuff. I don't get how they forcing her to say that. I don't get it.
It's doing that bizarre thing that they always do when they introduce new regulars and things, in that you have someone behaving out of character before you've even really got to know them. So you've had Storm Warning, where she's introduced really well. Then you've had Sword of Orion, where she's utterly forgettable. And then in this one, she's playing somebody else.
Herself and I think I missed that. I wanted a bit more Charlie rather than this hypnotised version.
Fantastic moment in part 4. I was punching the air where she goes to Orsino. The doctor steps in and she goes, no, let Orsino have his say. And then he comes at Charlie going, how dare you pretend to be, my lost lover and all this. And she goes on, how dare you, trick all these people with your hubris and your arrogance. And I'm going, Charlie, she is, and when I say she's full of spunk, she's got spunk and a bit, I'm telling you.
I think these episodes are quite long, actually. As well, I remember part 4 being very wordy and long, and it's just a lot. It's all like, did you say it was like one scene, isn't it, or something? Very long scene.
Yeah, but Paul Miles does that. He does write very long, wordy, theatrical scenes. This could almost be a stage play,
And Michael Sheard is very, like you say, he's very over the top, and he's loving it. They're loving it, and the cast are great. The performances are great. Oh, I don't know. It's okay. It's middle of the road for me.
Okay, so I absolutely adore Venice. Yeah. I've been 4 times now, and I took this to Venice one time, and I listened to it when I was on the lagoon.
Oh my God.
As the sun was coming down over a church. So I've got real sort of personal stakes in this story. I don't know. For once, I'm utterly transported. You know me, I'm a massive romantic as well. So all this love story about, curses and cities going to their doom.
It does feel
totally
it's very sort of season 13 a little bit as well. Season 13, it's like Mask of Mandragora for me. It's that flavour.
That's season 14.
Season 14.
Okay.
I don't know. If I was going to compare it to a TV story, it would be Mandragora.
Well, would you like to hear some fascinating facts about the Stones of Venice?
Absolutely.
I'm sure everybody is there for that. Okay, so...
Everybody's there for that.
So everyone turns
We're
up
all here.
to hear my interesting facts. Okay, so Paul Mars took a trip to what he calls seductive Gothic Venice, and the script practically, he says, the words spoke themselves. So he kind of drew inspiration from the actual setting. Took him 3.5 days to write it, whilst teaching and writing a novel. I can't tell, because this has got some of the best dialogue in any Big Finish story. So clearly he's just a very talented man. Mars says he wants character, witty retorts, flights of ludicrous rhetoric. And he hates hammering out a storyline, which might explain why this doesn't have much of a narrative. It is generally just people standing around.
It's a lot of character moments.
Yeah. But then
that's okay.
I don't think he always writes a strong plot, but it doesn't matter because I love being around his characters, and he writes with a sense of humour. In, again, stark contrast to Sword of Orion, which has no humour to it whatsoever.
And you said this was one of the ones that they gave to Tom Baker to try and entice him.
Yeah.
Imagine Tom Baker in this.
Oh, he'd be amazing, wouldn't he?
Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen.
Of course, Sarah.
Yeah.
You're my best friend.
Yeah.
He'd say at the end.
Brilliant.
Oh, dear. So at a Big Finish party, so imagine this, set the scene, Big Finish party, glasses are chinking, everyone's celebrating the first 10 or 12 releases. Bernie Summerfield's long forgotten. And Gary Russell comes up to Paul and says, Paul, we've got Tom. So I think this was written with Tom Baker in mind. Originally was written with Tom Baker in mind. because he was.
They haven't got Tom.
No. But he thought. I
thought he had.
Paul, but he started writing it, which I think is very.
So it was written for him in mind.
I'm
in a way,
not entirely sure. All I know is that anecdote is there. And Gary Russell apparently noticed the dirtier double entendres that featured it. Now, me, I'm always there for a double entendre or two. And he made him remove one in particular, which was, in 100 years, my cult has swollen to monstrous proportions. Disgusting.
People always, when Vampires of Venice came out, people always sort of were like, oh, it's going to contradict the Stones of Venice, or it's going to be similar. Are they going to take inspiration from it?
Yeah, well, even filmed in Venice. It was filmed in Croatia.
But they're completely different things, aren't they? If you haven't heard this one before, it's not anything like it at all. It's completely different.
Miles better than the Vampires of Venice.
It's nothing to do with
Vampires of Venice is your traditional Doctor Who alien invasion story. Very boring.
It's very different kind of Venice story.
This sort of love story. Across the ages, the Duke played a game of cards and staked his beloved, who was an alien that came down. Now, what was all this thing about the locket and the images of Estella?
I don't know.
No use talking to you about it, then, is there?
But imagine if this was a filmed Paul McGann story, right?
In Venice.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Can you imagine the DVD release? The Venice box set, Stones of Venice and Vampires of Venice, Venice Tales. Imagine with Paul McGann and Matt Smith.
It would have more of a link than Earth story, wouldn't it? Or Tegan Tales. No, I'm going to set my stake. This would be top 10. Wow. Big finish for me.
You love it. You always go on about this one.
I really genuinely love it, and I'm going to have to say that the music by Russell Stone is seductive and beautiful. It is extraordinarily good, the music for this. It's on the, I think, was it the Paul McGann stories had their own music release?
Own releases, yeah, the music.
Well, honestly, listen to the score for this one. The music, especially at the end when Estella and the Duke come together and then decide to sacrifice themselves for the city, and the music sort of swells. Oh, man, it's romantic as hell. It's beautiful. Yeah,
is this your favourite one we've talked about so far? Is this better than Marian Conspiracy?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And I think this absolutely proves to me that I don't really give a fuck about a plot. If I am interested in the characters and what they're talking about and their relationships and the emotion of it, there's so much emotion in this, I'm sold.
Wow. Well, if you haven't heard it then, go and download now.
Listen to the Stones of Venice.
All right, you pretty little satin bottom. We're going to talk about Minuet in Hell now.
That's how I'm often described.
So this was released in April 2001. And guest stars Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier.
Oh, yes.
Robert Jezek, Morgan Deere, and Helen Goldwyn again. She gets about, doesn't she?
Helen Goldwyn's doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
Wasn't she Nikki the Hiker in
She's everywhere.
Spectre of
She's been in all of these
Moore?
releases so far.
Wasn't she the student in Doctor and the Pirates?
She's in a lot, yeah.
You know, I am alone, I live alone.
This was written by Alan W. Lear and Gary Russell.
Yeah, we don't see much of Alan W. Lear after this, and when I tell you about the protracted history of this one, you'll understand why.
It was directed by Nicholas Briggs, never a good sign, and music by...
Hang on. What did you say? That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
What, directed by?
Yeah.
Nicholas Briggs is a great director.
Okay, all right. This is...
terrible.
a very specific kind of Doctor Who story.
I think it's about 8 times a Doctor Who story. It's the Doctor meets the Brigadier. It's a bizarre Masonic adventure. It's a political thing about, what's his name? Trying to take over the state of Malabolgia.
Well, the big selling point of this is new Doctor meets Brigadier. He's chalking up another Doctor. It's Nicholas Courtney and Paul McGann.
He doesn't even know it is the Brigadier.
Which is a wasted opportunity.
It's
the worst story for the Brigadier to meet the Doctor.
Not like, remember Inspector of Lanyon Moore?
I know, that was perfect. Yeah, and this, the American accents, just the storyline is just. But actually, so we're set in America in this one, and the structure of the story is a bit different, isn't it? Because the Doctor and Charlie are already separated and in the middle of all what's happened. We're not a witness to the beginning of the events, if you see what I mean.
New adventures.
We find out, it's got that. So you're already sort of thrown into something in America.
Wait, stop there. In America, yeah. And this is a point where saying the words "in America" in a Big Finish story, you're in a lot of trouble, because they're not bringing in American actors to play these roles. They're bringing in British actors that do, Betty Lee Kowalski or whatever her name.
Kowalski? That's Helen Goldwyn, isn't it?
I fight against the forces of nature. It's just...
Betty Lee Kowalski, that's Helen Goldwyn.
Yeah,
that's Helen, don't get in between me and my Horlicks Goldwyn.
Well, I'll say this for you, Helen.
I love her. I think she's great.
You are a fantastic director, but stop playing American teenagers. That is not in your wheelhouse. No, and... sorry. And what... I can't remember. What's his name? Marcosius. The devil. When he turned up and he's going... Charlie, my darling, my darling.
Oh, no, but Dashwood is Robert Jezek. He's American, isn't he? Frobisher?
No, he's Polish.
Oh.
Dashwood for the White House. Let the people go.
Please, I always find this the toughest of the Paul McGann stories to get through.
Do you know why? It comes in at about 12 and a half hours long.
It's very overly long.
And episode 1 is about 40... I think it's 50 minutes long, episode 1.
It's a tough one to get through. It really is. And I really tried this time. I always skip this one.
You know what? You might have had a tough time listening to this, and I might have had an agonising time listening to this, but no one had a worse experience than Gary Russell.
Oh, okay. Tell us all. We might be more forgiving of the story.
The behind-the-scenes stories. Okay. Well, apparently the starting off point for Alan Lear...
Alan Double
Lear. Is it Alan W.?
Yeah.
Alan W. Lear, was to make the Doctor doubt his own identity.
Okay, fine.
But that idea does get a little lost.
And also because this Doctor as well, I mean, if you follow the books and everything, the Eighth Doctor loses his memory and identity way too much across all media, doesn't he?
He certainly does in the novels, and that's for about a 50-book stretch.
Yeah.
This was another rewrite of an audiovisual script. Now, originally, I think they were just going to tweak it, and then Alan W. Lear decided to completely, retool the whole thing. But he was sick at the time, and scenes started coming in, apparently, rather than like an episode, one at a time, in the wrong order. And they all had to be retyped by Gary Russell. So from a script editor's and producer's point of view, that must have been nightmarish. Imagine if you're getting scenes from episode 1, episode 4, badly typed. You're having to...
I wonder at what stage, though, was it like in terms of time and pressure and stuff? Obviously, that's not an ideal. Why didn't they just throw that out and get another script if it wasn't going so well? I don't understand. Was it too late?
I don't think this was the time when they had a lot of spares. I think...
There's a whole load of other audio visuals, surely.
Apparently, the second half of the script was so, it went against what Russell originally asked Alan Lear to do, that he rewrote 90% of the second half. So this has been pulled apart by another writer as well. It's coming in the wrong order. I think Gary Russell made the best of a botched job.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that, it's not as... Well, you can't. I don't know. You just get it and you think, this is an awful story.
No, I do feel like there are about 15 stories pulling.
There's a lot going on in this, yeah.
And by all accounts, Lear was so appalled by the finished result
that
he left a rambling, drunken message on Gary Russell's answer phone. Oh man, I'd love to be able to hear that.
It's difficult because you don't know. Obviously, it's a bit like when you criticise sort of classic Doctor Who, and I'm harsh on the Graham Williams era, but there's budget, there's time. It's very easy to just be like, this is terrible. And I don't think you always appreciate those behind the scenes things, but it's easy to look back and be like, well, yeah, why didn't they get another script? Why didn't they just say to Alan W. Lear, obviously the W doesn't stand for writer.
Bitch!
It's easy to say these things, I know, but then also, I don't know. It's interesting, the process of this, about how these things can really go wrong sometimes, and you end up with, you've got to do the best you can.
It's highlighted, though, because I think even though we don't like Sword of Orion, it is very focused on what it's doing, which is like a claustrophobic story.
Yeah.
Stones of Venice is very focused on what it's doing, which is like a big sort of historical romance or future historical romance. And so is Storm Warning. And then this comes along and it's very confused and it's disjointed. And you're just like, what happened? This ended the season. This is how we saw out this exciting year of Paul McGann.
Imagine, though, if the TV series had gone and it would be made in America, do you think it would be set in America a lot? You know, is this the kind of vibe that you might get on the TV series if it was made in America? Imagine this could be a completely different alternative reality where this was the type of Doctor Who that we had.
I'll tell you what I want. If it was set in America, you know that Master box set we just listened to with Chase Masterson and Eric Roberts?
That's kind of
two Americans firing lots of guns at Daleks. Now that's what I would have wanted.
But for this season, though, it is another different type. You know, having that. I suppose it does that, but it doesn't do it.
Do you know what's weird as well? Is that they lean into this like sex dungeon hellfire club. They put Charlie Pollard, this Edwardian adventuress, inside like a sex costume.
It's a very odd choice, isn't it? And when must have been when the new series was back up, and they were trying to get they're trying to get people more into Big Finish and everything. They put these on, was it 4 Extra? Right. They put these on 4 Extra.
Did they put this one on?
No, they left this one out. And they did a box set, a special box set. They released, it was like a sort of DVD size special box set, the 8th Doctor first season, and they missed this one out. I think they did Invaders of Mars. I don't know if it was with all the sort of demonic-y, sex dungeon-y stuff that they couldn't broadcast, but there was a reason this one always gets left out in that first season.
It's because it's too offensive to the Americans, these dreadful accents.
So obviously the content in this, but this is also, you've got to remember, before the series, before the BBC probably were keeping a very close eye because on the scripts and everything. So you wouldn't get this nowadays.
No,
I don't think you wouldn't get all that the demon-y stuff and the prostitute-y stuff or whatever it is, all that orgy stuff.
The new series hit, didn't it? Just after the 100th release. Way down. I think there's some experimental stuff and some adult stuff.
You've got to say, it's still
you
experimental.
Wouldn't have, like Jubilee, which is quite sick. Yeah. Creature of Beauty. There's a rape scene in Necromantia. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in this first 100, which is what makes it quite exciting.
It's still great that they're experimenting and doing different things.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I want all torture and rape.
No, I know.
But they were trying to...
At least it is trying to do different stuff.
I'm not even sure you've had Chimes of Midnight now, which climaxes with Edith slitting her wrists.
It depends, They're not as sort of audio... They're like, this is still very much for the fans, or maybe the New Adventures style fans.
Okay, can I just say, what is that comedy devil all about? That is, do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the devil from the South Park movie. He even sounds like him as well. Hey, Satan, are you coming to bed for some anal sex? What is that all about? I think it's supposed to be funny.
I don't think it's supposed to be funny, no. I just think it's just badly judged. And it's a shame because Paul McGann doesn't have his mate. He's not the Doctor throughout,
They're doing it again.
3/4 of this.
Regulars being introduced and then they're out of character.
I don't want to hear him going, I don't know who I am, but it's just boring. And you got Nicholas Briggs playing this other Doctor. Is that a bit of an in-joke that you play the Doctor in the audio visuals and stuff?
Charlie, Sam, Ace, Evelyn, Nissa, Romana, Sarah Jane, Jamie, Polly, Ian, Barbara, and Susan. Dear Susan.
How do you know all this?
I know everything there is to know about these matters. Haven't you worked it out yet? You aren't the Doctor, my poor, mad, confused friend. No. I am.
I don't want to hear Nicholas Briggs as a Doctor. It's not interesting.
I totally forgotten that Nicholas Briggs was in this, But it's been a while since I've heard it. He's dreadful, isn't he?
But even if it wasn't Nicholas Briggs, I just don't want to hear somebody else because we're getting these precious moments of Paul McGann. How long is he only going to do these for? Is he not going to do them again? And we're wasting him.
It was precious at the time.
Well, I'm talking
about
at the time.
300 stories now.
I'm talking at the time. Is this the last one of this one season that he's ever done for Big Finish?
Oh, God.
And we've wasted him in this story. He's met the Brigadier, but he wasn't.
Paul McGann's like, I'm not making any more. That script was just awful. Mind you, He had a few moments like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
When they went into the Divergent universe, he said,
Yeah.
I'm not really digging these stories. Like, can we do something a bit different? I think it was Dark Eyes, actually, and the Lucy Miller stuff.
The Lucy Miller stuff, I
that
think, got
turned him
back
around
up.
a
Yeah.
bit, working with Sheridan Smith.
But here, he's doing his best, and India Fisher's doing her best, but it's a waste. And Nicholas Courtney's great. I just feel it's a little bit of a waste of a story for him.
But I do think, like, if you focus on just one of these things, yeah, so say this whole story was around, it's not Pickering, what's his name? What's
Waldo Pickering,
the villain called?
Senator Waldo Pickering.
No, the villain.
Dashwood.
Yeah, if this was all about Dashwood trying to, like, manoeuvre himself politically, that could have been an interesting story. If this was about the Hellfire Club and the sort of history behind that, that could have been interesting. If this was about the Doctor's
brain mind
amnesia
thing.
and that brain, that's quite... Or if this had just been a story about the Brigadier and the Doctor and Charlie coming together... All these, they all have potential, but you mash them all up together in this great Christmas pudding, and it's lumpen and unwieldy.
And what's that bit where she thought, who was it? Charlie falls through the window or whatever at that moment.
She goes, "Ah!" They haven't put a sound effect on. They've just said, "In Fisher, can you just bring your voice down?" So she goes, "Ah!" Oh, it's very cheap.
It really isn't a good end to this season. It's not one I would recommend if you're getting into Big Finish or getting into Paul McGann, or it's really just leave this one till last. I'm sorry.
Do you know what is weird though about this sort of season as a whole? Is we've got to a point now where, you know, you've had like 5 together, Lanyon Moore, Marion Conspiracy. I've had 5 together, Fires of Pompeii, Holy Terror. They're in their stride at this point.
Some brilliant ones, yeah.
Paul McGann's come in, man, oh man, they literally should have just been offering him bangers. But this is remarkably inconsistent.
Well, it's funny that the two that we aren't as keen on are the audiovisual scripts.
Yeah, the rehashed
that
ones.
have been rehashed.
Because do you know what?
So,
I know you're, and this is a little spoiler for what's coming ahead, you're not so keen on Invaders of Mars from Mars, but you pretty much like the rest of that season, don't you? And I feel like 2, they've got a more coherent year, they've got a more confident tone, and each story is at least good.
Yeah.
Even if it's not to your taste, it is at least good.
This did this go down well at the time? I don't really remember. I don't know.
I think people were just so excited
people
to
just
hear more Paul McGann.
It's Paul McGann, so we're going to get it, and it's not. Yeah.
Instead of one person buying each release now, I think they were selling at least 3 of each story at this point. Sorry. No, I bet there was a big spike. I bet suddenly there was renewed
And with
interest
Nicholas
in Big
Courtney,
Finish.
imagine if Nicholas Courtney wasn't in this, at least he brings something extra. Maybe a bit of familiarity, a bit of, if
My
that's what
favourite
you're
scenes
looking
were,
for.
You know, when he's doing his recorded logs to send back to you, and it's just him.
And it's,
typing.
that's the best bit, isn't it?
The whole story.
That's the best bit.
Let's just see if there's any more facts. Oh, yeah. Actually, there is. Well, I've made a point here that Dashwood is, you know, the Robertson character from Jodie Whittaker's time.
Oh, yeah.
As played by Chris Noth, recently cancelled. Well, I felt like Dashwood was sort of him before his time. A sort of over-the-top American politician character.
Yes, but this is way too over the top.
What's weird is Jezek played Frobisher a few stories back.
And he's
was
brilliant.
so charming in that.
Yeah.
And there's just none of that here, is there?
Oh, it's just... I can't really think of anything else to say that's positive about this one, unfortunately.
No, I think it's... Actually, I think it's probably the weakest of the year. I don't think you agree with that. I think you probably think that's sort of Orion. But I think this has huge potential, but it is a bit of a mess.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's leave it there.
Okay.
Well, what do you want to do? Quiz or chronology?
Well, why don't you chronologise us?
Well, it's my chronology moment. It's very simple this time.
Go on. Off you go.
We have these 4 stories. It's a mini season.
Yeah.
For Paul McGann. So they all follow on from each other at this point.
So what, we're going on. So it goes TV, movie, storm warning.
Yeah, we're just going straight from the TV movie. We haven't had anything else, have we? So we're TV movie, storm warning, Sword of Orion, Stones of Venice, Minuet in Hell.
Even I could have ordered that one.
Exactly, so there's not much to say at this moment. And then we've got, obviously, Rose at the other end, because we don't have anything else at this
Yeah, you
point.
do. Night of the Doctor.
Oh, Night of the Doctor, sorry, yeah.
Oh, honestly, where would you be without me?
There we go. So it's a very easy, it's its own season. And I'll try not to break these up because it was designed as that, you know, with this arc going through.
Well, I've got something to say to you.
Yep.
As you can imagine, Doc Oho had much to say.
Oh, let's find out what Doc Oho
Hey-ho.
said. So you were reviewing these at the time?
I was.
As they were being released. So what was the vibe from Doc Oho back in 2001?
Well, in terms of Storm Warning, Doc Oho says, verbose, optimistic, and full of boundless energy. That's talking about the Doctor, obviously. Charlie has gotten an airman drunk, stolen his uniform, and is posing as Murchford on the R101. You're already going to love a character like that.
Yep.
And we did. And then I said it feels like everything has been thrown at this production to make it as memorable as possible. And I still agree with that.
True, yeah. And it is still memorable. Yep.
Unfortunately, he was less kind about Sword of Orion, which Doc Oho gave 1 out of 10.
Oh, really?
to.
At the time?
1 out
wow.
of 10, yeah. I would agree with it now, I think. Okay, so I said, isn't it odd that Nicholas Briggs chose this to be the template of his Cyberman series?
I think that's good. I think when we get to that, we'll appreciate the Cyberman series more.
Listen to this, he's scathing. It's all atmosphere and no intelligence, a terribly dull linear storyline that lacks incident, characters with any personality or any real drama. Doc Oho, you meanie.
Correct.
And then finally, the 8th Doctor line ground to a halt with this plodder.
Oh, only its second release.
Excuse me, you said every time you do...
Yeah, well, it does. Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Stones of Venice is a lot kinder, though. Oh, I do say the story is hopelessly predictable, but I don't give a toss because I was so romanced by its atmosphere and imagery. Mm-hmm. Controversially, this might be my all-time favourite Big Finish. The script is captivating, full of delicious dialogue, magic, love and wonder, and perfectly taking me back to one of the best weeks of my life in Venice.
Oh.
That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll take you one day, don't you worry. Okay. Sorry. And as for Minuet in Hell, lock McGann in a cell with no personality and charisma, and he barely registers. Gary Russell tries to paper over the faults in the script with lots of moments of audio madness. Yeah, there's lots of weird sound design and stuff like that going on in this. I think he's really just trying to distract you.
Doesn't help, but surely edit some stuff out.
Right. And then I put, and you'll agree with this, I wanted the 8th Doctor to get his memory back and have a jolly adventure with the Brigadier.
Yeah. So nothing's really changed in your opinions on these ones. Listening to them again now.
No, I think my reaction was identical to when I first heard this. And it's not always been the case doing...
No, not even Sword of Orion or anything has been...
Not really,
more enjoyable, no.
It's very up and down, but I'd say the highs are very high and the lows are very low.
Yeah.
Pick and choose carefully, basically.
Yeah. Okay, let's do a little quiz then.
Here we go.
Quiz
It's time for Oral Audacity. Who's going first?
Do you want to go first?
Yes, okay. So, what month and year is Storm Warning set?
October 1930.
Eh? Yeah, it was. How do you know that?
That's my question to you.
No.
5th of October, what date was the R101 crash? 5th of October 1930. There we go.
That is the correct answer.
Oh, there you go. 1 point each then. That was easy.
Okay.
Well, that's mine. Well, okay, your second one then.
What was the name of the story that Sword of Orion was based on?
Oh, shit. The name of the story?
Yeah.
Wasn't it just Sword of Orion? The audiovisuals one, you mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know it. Oh, Heart of Orion.
No.
I don't know.
It was Sword of Orion.
Oh, that's a trick question. Did I get that right? Because I said it first. You just didn't tell me I was right.
No, I think your official answer was Heart of Orion.
No!
Yeah. Okay, well, what's your question?
Okay. Why this happened, I don't know. Can you name the sequel to Sword of Orion that was released by Big Finish in January 2020. Out of all the stories, they decided to do a sequel to this one in the Charlie Pollard box set, bringing back Michelle Livingstone as that memorable character 20 years later. We've all been waiting for this, haven't we? So, what is the name of the story?
Are you talking about Diva? Is Diva
Whatever.
back?
Yeah.
Michelle Livingstone, honestly.
She's been waiting for that call for 20 years. When am I going to reprise my famous character?
You're such a bitch, I swear.
So what's the name of that story?
Heart of Orion.
Yeah, it is.
Woo! You just told me that, you nonce.
Okay,
honestly.
So I'm going to say we've got 1 point each. We've got 2 points each.
2 points each, that's fair. Okay, so my question about the Stones of Venice is, name every role Michael Sheard has played in Doctor Who.
Oh, fuck off. That's my question to you.
Oh, okay, well, let's do one each then.
Okay.
So I'll say he played a fella in The Ark.
Yeah, he played the guy in the art. He was in The Mind of Evil.
He played Lawrence Scarman in Pyramids of Mars.
He was in The Invisible Enemy.
He was. He played Murgreave in Castrovalva.
Yeah. And he was in Remembrance of the Daleks as the head teacher, wasn't he?
I feel there's one more.
No.
We missed one.
No, I wrote them all down.
Are you sure?
He's not in another Patrick Troughton one or something, is he? We missed Patrick Troughton out.
I swear, he's in another John Pertwee story.
No.
Oh, well. Okay, well, let's say
He's in The Stones of Venice with Paul McGann. Yeah.
That's another point each then.
Yeah.
And finally,
3 each.
my last question is, which companions does Gideon Crane name to test the Doctor?
Oh.
And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
10 of them.
Yeah.
Tegan Ace.
No, wrong.
Victoria.
No, you've already said it wrong.
Oh.
It's Charlie, Sam, Ace, Evelyn, Nissa, Romana, Sarah Jane, Jamie, Polly, Ian, Barbara, and Susan.
What?
Dear Susan.
It's interesting Sam from the books.
Yeah,
The eighth Doctor companion in the books. So
Yeah.
this must be... And the idea is this is set after the books. But I don't count books in my chronology, so it doesn't matter.
Do you know what? I'm going to tell you a fact about that. When Joe Lidster wrote Terra Firma and they put in companions pre-Storm Warning, because the Terra Firma leads into Storm Warning, that he deliberately, Gary Ross said, I want one of them called Sam, because he didn't want any references to the 8th Doctor books in the range. So that's not Sam Jones.
Samson.
That's Samson that she's talking
Why didn't
about.
he want the books reference?
He just wanted them as two distinct
Why did he let
lines.
this... He half wrote this one. Why did he let this one slip then?
Oh, he's having a nice day. I don't know. He's come round to tea soon. I'll ask him.
Okay, my question for Minuet In Hell is, which future Big Finish story is referenced in Minuet In Hell?
Really? Lugaroo.
Yes, because he says in one of those things about being in wherever that one's set.
Yeah, there was something tickling in the back of my mind about Lugaroo. I couldn't have told
they
you what the
reference
reference
that to the
was.
next one. Yes.
How interesting. Wow.
There we go. So you got that right. So I got that wrong. So you got 5. I got 4.
Yes! Dun, 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 dun. Ducko ho. Oh, that means, hang on, but what's those overall points then?
I don't know. I need to add them up for next time.
Okay.
Go back and listen, everyone.
Yeah, listen
work
to
it
our old
out.
episodes, because we can't be arsed. So, well, after that diversion into Paul McGann.
Oh, that was good. I love Paul McGann. We all love Paul McGann, don't we?
I know, but I can't wait to do... I want to do the second series more, because I think it's more
Gets
consistently good. Yeah. Then he heads into the Divergent Universe.
He's everywhere. Oh, it just gets better and better.
You want to talk about inconsistent? Divergent Universe is the worst. Where are we going next?
Well, we are, as I say, we are doing all the Big Finish releases in order, so it just depends, and I'm sort of bunching them together in sort of types and seasons. So actually, we're taking a bit of a weird step, and we're doing some of the Big Finish Talks Back series. So we
Interviews,
are doing
aren't they?
interview CDs releases that they sort of went off and did. So we are going to do the John Nathan Turner memoirs.
Oh my god.
The Audio Companions.
Oh,
which
that's
is
India Fisher and
Lisa Bauman and Maggie Stables
my
having a
favourites.
chat.
They're my three favourites.
And the Nicholas Courtney memoirs
That's
as
a bit
well.
boring, you know, I love Nicholas Courtney, but honestly, in this interview, in this memoir, he talks so much about his life.
That's
and
because
not
it's his
enough about-
memoir about his life. It's not about Doctor Who.
That's not very exciting. Though, is it? The John Nathan Turner one
But
is the best.
it's made so Doctor Who fans will buy it. because it was
JNT one
wicked.
is full of gossip. It's
Yeah,
great.
it is
Although it's
brilliant.
still quite sanitised. And
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
I'm going to talk a bit more about the Richard Marsden book about life and scandalous times of JNT.
Do you want to do your JNT impression? No.
Okay, Jeremy. Yes. I'll do the speech. Yes.
I always do him from the PSP thing. K9 was the Doctor's faithful companion, and we're going to talk to his creator after the break. Oh,
I've
God.
never heard anything like it.
Anyway.
It's funnier when he goes, what is it? Oh, yes, the dog. I wanted shot of him.
Well, okay, we will be talking about those next time, so we'll see you then.
See you next time.
Bye.